Hey guys and girls, it's K7. Today I'm going to be uploading this very old video from either 2015 or 16. I'm not quite sure. It could be older than that, but I can't quite remember. The quality of the microphone is, kind of not as good because, I didn't have the quality equipment back then, so the mic quality isn't that great. Sorry for that, but it's older, but the point still is there. And the reason I'm uploading this is because it really is relevant to today. And when you watch the video, if you watch the video, you'll understand why it's relevant to today, because it makes so much sense. And I made this video back a long time ago. If I find some more old videos that I can upload to this channel that I used to have on it, then I actually will. Especially if it's relevant. Some of the stuff I deleted, so I don't have it anymore, and hopefully I can find it. But if I find some more relevant stuff, then I will post it to this channel. But anyway, nevertheless, here's this video, and let me know what you guys and girls think down in the comment section below. Leave your comments down there, share it, do whatever what you want with it. But I'm just sharing the information because I know it's needed, especially today. People's trying to find out the truth, and I'm a big 1000% supporter of the truth, and I love the truth, and I walk in it, and I try to walk in and stand it each and every day. So anyway, I'm just bringing you guys this information, and here's the video. Enjoy, leave your comments below, and share or do whatever you want with the video. All right, guys, this is K7. Take care. See you guys next time. May God Almighty bless all of you who are willing to do the work. Take care.
Pete Paschal, tech editor at Mashable. I'm here at Qualcomm's event to show off the Snapdragon 820 chip, the chip that's going to power a bunch of flagship smartphones in 2016. Let's see what it can do. We've all heard of facial recognition, but the Snapdragon 820 jacks it up a notch with object and scene recognition in real time. Just hold your phone up and it can tell if you're looking at a beach scene or a sushi dinner. Connection not fast enough? The new chip supports both next generation Wi-Fi, that's 802.11ad in case you're curious, and multiple user connections. Of course, you also need a new router and a beefy internet connection to really use it, but baby steps. The Snapdragon 820 can create surround sound from a device's speakers. The sound gives the illusion of both direction and distance, making it perfect for movies and, virtual reality? Speaking of VR, Qualcomm was clearly thinking about virtual reality when it created the Snapdragon 820. The CPU and graphics processor can work together to render a highly detailed 3D environment in real time.
Another big product is the Oculus Rift. Unlike the last few years where we've seen prototypes, this is the consumer version that you can order today. Not only does it have some of the best optics and screens in a VR headset, but it also comes with a positional tracker to place you in a 3D space, a remote for navigating the space, along with an Xbox One controller for gaming.
So with that, in our rapidly paced growing society, the technology has grown right alongside of it, such as our smartphones, smart TVs, and smart refrigerators, and there was so much more that I couldn't even cover in this video. But one may argue that this is a good thing, but I myself have to say that it's not always as pretty as it looks.
This is an Audi RS7. It's got a twin turbocharged 4-litre V8 that puts out 552 brake horsepower. Left alone, it'll get to 62 miles an hour in 3.9 seconds and go on to a limited 155 miles an hour. In other words, it's supercar quick. And in a little while, I'm going to try and set a lap time in it that a properly quick racing driver would be proud of, which is quite a big ask because I'm not a racing driver. Nor have I ever driven at the Ascari race circuit, nor have I ever driven the RS7 before. So why am I doing this? Because Audi's invited me out to Spain to compete in a unique challenge. They want to see if I can beat that. That is also an RS7 with identical power and performance to the car I'll be driving. And I'll be up against a driver capable of machine-like precision and speed. That's because the driver is a machine. This car may be fitted with a steering wheel, pedals and gear shift, but it doesn't need anybody to operate them. That car drives itself. Yes, it's totally autonomous, and provided it's been pre-programmed with details of the location, can take itself off for a very high-speed spin. Not surprisingly, there's a lot of clever technology keeping the RS7 on the road and out of hedges. For starters, there are 3D cameras that compare the view from the car with a database of known reference points, so the car can see if it's where it should be. There are ultrasonic parking-style sensors around the car to detect nearby objects. There are radar and laser scanning systems that look for trouble up to 250 meters ahead. And finally, there's a GPS system that knows the car's position to within 1 centimetre. But information's no good if you don't know what to do with it. Fortunately, the RS7 has a very big brain here in the big boot, which then decides whether to accelerate, brake, or steer the car. So does this frighten me? Well, I'll tell you in a few minutes, because it is about to take me for a drive.
Meet Baxter. Unlike these things, which require skilled operators and technicians and millions of dollars, Baxter has vision and can learn what you want him to do by watching you do it. And he costs less than the average annual salary of a human worker. Unlike his older brothers, he isn't pre-programmed for one specific job. He can do whatever work is within the reach of his arms. Baxter is what might be thought of as a general-purpose robot, and general purpose is a big deal. Think computers. They too started out as highly custom and highly expensive, but when cheap-ish general-purpose computers appeared, they quickly became vital to everything. A general-purpose computer can just as easily calculate change, or assign seats on an airplane, or play a game, or do anything just by swapping its software. And this huge demand for computers of all kinds is what makes them both more powerful and cheaper every year. Baxter today is the computer of the 1980s. He's not the apex, but the beginning. Even if Baxter is slow, his hourly cost is pennies worth of electricity, while his meat-based competition costs minimum wage. A tenth the speed is still cost-effective when it's 100th the price. And while Baxter isn't as smart as some of the other things we will talk about, he's smart enough to take over many low-skilled jobs. And we've already seen how dumber robots than Baxter can replace jobs. In new supermarkets, what used to be 30 humans is now 1 human overseeing 30 cashier robots. Or take the hundreds of thousands of baristas employed worldwide. There's a barista robot coming for them. Sure, maybe your guy makes the double mocha whatever just perfect and you'd never trust anyone else, but millions of people don't care and just want a decent cup of coffee. Oh, and by the way, this robot is actually a giant network of robots that remembers who you are and how you like your coffee no matter where you are. Pretty convenient. We think of technological change as the fancy new expensive stuff, but the real change comes from last decade's stuff getting cheaper and faster. That's what's happening to robots now. And because their mechanical minds are capable of decision-making, they are out-competing humans for jobs in a way no pure mechanical muscle ever could.
As you can tell, if you have at least a 10th grade average, or even a child, an innocent child could see this, the technology is advancing quite beyond human comprehension. And comprehension and human physicalities and capabilities. As you can see, they are truly replacing humans with robots. We have cars that now drive themselves. What's the purpose for a car if you can't drive it? Now, I can see if it were for someone who maybe was blind or couldn't see that well or something like that, maybe some driving assistance wouldn't be a bad idea. But for the average Joe, like myself, or like anyone else, I don't even think these things are needed. In fact, I'd have to say that they're not needed. These types of things just makes us lazy. It makes us stop doing the things that would normally be done by hand or by ourselves. It's become a major threat to the human society. And with such advancements, one might say, well, the technological advancements are getting really advanced. How am I going to keep up with that? Well, have you ever heard of the saying, if you can't beat them, join them? And I truly have to say that this is not a good option, and neither is it beneficial.
A lot of us can't leave home without our smartphones or tablets, but would you implant that type of technology under your skin? One Vancouver man did, saying it's a growing trend for people wanting to advance their body and mind.
You can scan it, then up pops my contact details. It's that virtual transferable business card.
I still think, we may have chips in ourselves.
Finally from us this evening, technology on the cutting edge. We were interested today to hear that more than 100 law enforcement officials in Mexico are having microchips implanted in their arms. The chips allow a person to be scanned, sort of like a cereal box at the supermarket checkout. In Mexico, this will be one more tool in the fight against crime. Here's ABC's John McKenzie.
You've seen it before, right out of Hollywood.
Maybe a little uncomfortable.
A microchip inside the body. A hidden, high-tech identification tag.
They're the access codes to your job spot.
Now, Mexico's Attorney General and 160 of his deputies have had microchips implanted in their arms to control access to the country's new Criminal Investigation Center. It is to provide access, said the Attorney General, to the right people in exclusive areas where there is valuable, sensitive information. The microchip, the size of a grain of rice, is injected under the skin and gives off a low-frequency radio wave. A scanner reads each chip's identification number to verify an official's security clearance.
The microchip is tamper-proof, it's secure, no one can take your microchip and use it to their advantage to gain access to your facility.
The chip, developed by Applied Digital Solutions, is similar to those used in the U.S. to identify and return runaway dogs. In humans, it can have several uses.
Little stick.
The chips can also be programmed to carry medical information. The one in this patient details his blood type, allergies, and the fact he has Alzheimer's disease. The device is now awaiting approval from the Food and Drug Administration. Some researchers are developing microchips for use in the home, so that wearing one can turn on lights and open doors. Hands-free. The next step, say researchers, is developing an implantable chip with a global positioning system to track people miles away, whether kidnapped or lost, just as cars can now be traced. A kind of LoJack for the body. John McKenzie, ABC News, New York.
That is our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. We hope you have a good evening. Good night.
More now of our special coverage here tonight, life in the U.S. in 10 years' time. By that time, there may be all kinds of new ways to safeguard and identify all those things that make each of us unique, our faces, even our fingerprints, even our eyes. Here now with more on the future of technology, NBC's Tom Costello.
The year is 2017. You're rushed to a hospital unconscious with no ID or medical history, but thanks to a microchip under your skin, it's all there. Science fiction 20 years ago, but a biometric reality today.
Well, it looks like the mark of the beast is getting some new recruits. The first microchip man has now breezed through airport security. Telegraph's Hugh Morris reports a man who implanted a microchip containing his airline booking details into his hand was able to use it to pass effortlessly through security to his flight. Andreas Jostrom, the vice president of digital for technology consulting company Sogeti, has the near-field communication chip, NFC, that's what they're calling them now, NFC chips, and it's about the size of a grain of rice, injected into his hand with a syringe before using it at the Stockholm airport to pass through security and board his plane. Jostrom uploaded his Scandinavian Airlines Eurobonus member ID to the XNT implant, and using NFC readers in the Swedish airport, he was able to register his boarding pass and passport by simply pressing his hand to a scanner. Now, he did upload a video of his effort to YouTube, and in it he explained, quote, "A few weeks ago I had an NFC chip implanted into my hand just beneath the skin. In the video, I used the chip to pass through Stockholm Airport, through security at the lounge, and finally through the gate to the aircraft." Now, here's the interesting part. The microchip came from an American company called Dangerous Things. Would you inject something from a company called Dangerous Things into your body? I would not. Now, its CEO, Emil Grafstra, told Mike, an American news website, that the trial was part of the Scandinavian Airlines' aim to further innovate its customer experiences, which currently includes an NFC readable sticker that holds a passenger's details. So the mark of the beast, getting some more recruits, and this man is a willing participant in that end time fulfillment of prophecy.
Okay, so as you can see, my skin is pinched up a little bit, so it's easier to get the chip under the skin. The syringe is injected, and of course this is a medical professional who performs the procedure. Normally there is no bleeding involved. You will see here at the end that there's a little bleeding happening here, but it's taken care of, and everything went very well.
Obviously feel the chip under my skin here. I have to be very careful. So 2 weeks after your injection, you have to be quite careful not to do any heavy lifting, because there's a muscle here, and if you put like a lot of pressure on that, you can move the chip around, and it needs about 2 weeks to settle in. After those 2 weeks, you can basically do what you can normally do, and this is a nice area of the hand to put it in, because you have a cushion on the bottom of your hand and on the top of your hand, so you can do quite extreme things and you won't break the glass capsule. For example, if you put your capsule here, where a lot of people would actually want it because it's handy to scan like that, let's say you start lifting something really heavy, there's going to be like a lot of pressure on this point, and it's still a glass capsule, so that'll break. You must find the sweet spot of your smartphone, so the actual point where your chip is located. In this case, it's about here. There we go. You can see some data here. Right now I just formatted it, so it's completely empty. This is the memory space, so you have some configuration bytes in the front, then you have all your data you want to store, 880 bytes.
I had an NFC implant, so I actually injected, or I had injected an implant, a small chip in my hand, and we put my Eurobonus number into the chip, and today when I passed through security and the lounge registration, I just waved my hand over the reader and I could pass through. So no more boarding pass, no more picking up the phone, just passing through.
You don't need to care about batteries, right, or whatever.
Exactly.
So how deep is the implant? I mean,
it's just beneath the skin, so you can actually feel it if you touch it. Yeah.
Okay. What's your expectation? Are we expecting passengers to come to us now and to say, can you please write the Eurobonus number into?
I don't think so.
Selected one, maybe.
Maybe. I think that it's interesting to experiment and see where things are going. Obviously, there are some interesting trends in the market with sensors and app phones, with counting steps you take and your pulse, etc. And I think this is a step of experimentation. In the future, we may have things that you can put on top of the skin instead of going into. But just to find out what are the scenarios and how does it work is really key, I think.
So, let's get right to the point. Hey, now, I know you might say that this looks very pretty in a way. Being able to use your hand and wave it over things to communicate with your current technology. But it may seem pretty, but it's actually not. Of course, the devil would like or love to fool and trick you. Let's be honest. This is the greatest deception known to man. So, not only is it a deception, it's also a mark. And you may say, a mark? What's a mark? Well, just like a birthmark, just like any other mark that you may mark something with in order to call it your own. And you might even ask yourself, well, what does this have to do with me? Well, it has a lot to do with you. It's a mark of ownership. And you might say, what are you talking about? Well, I'll put it this way. I'll use this chart as an example. Here, I made this chart to utilize this instance to show you a perfect example of exactly what I mean. Now, as you can see here at the top, there is, let's just say this is the master, the host computer. Now I'll be using computers as an example since we're using technology. So here at the top, this man represents the master computer. Down here are your hosts that the master computer controls. Here on the left side, we have the lower host computers being controlled by the master system. So the main computer gives orders to the little small computers underneath. And as you see, they have their orders from the master. They can't do anything more or less than what the master tells them. And here, on the right side, is the other set of lower host master computers. These are master computers, but they are just below the master computer. They are not exactly at the bottom of the list, but they are below the master. Now, the second in command master computer also controls part of the smaller ones. Now, you may ask, what does this have anything to do with me? How does this affect me? Well, I'll put it to you this way. The mark of the beast is a mark, and it is indeed a mark of the devil. Now, it is a mark that if you take, then the devil owns and claims you. This is why I use this chart as an example, because this mark will give the devil full control of you. The man in the top of this chart represents Satan. The people in the right represent the elite, and the people in the bottom represent you. Satan has his system, and in order to establish his system, he needs to plant his seeds and give you his mark to give him full control of you. If you take this mark, you are indeed a part of his system, and there's no going back. You can't change once you've chosen this system. The system that he's chosen to build upon is one you find to be ideal, one that works with your so-called society. It's just a lie. It's a trick. If you take his mark, you will go to hell. You will not be marked by God, but you will indeed be marked by Satan. And you will be controlled. You won't have any control over yourself or anything you do. So, if you take the mark, you will most definitely go to hell. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But there's also a mark of God. Sure, it may not be a physical mark, but nevertheless, it's a mark. Because if you believe in God and you are an elect, you are marked by God. We are sealed, and the seal of God is God's mark. So the devil has a mark, and so does God. So if you choose the devil's mark, you'll go to hell. There's no salvation for you. And you can't go to heaven. You won't be able to get into heaven if you chose this mark of Satan instead of the mark of God. Now, I'll bring it into further detail. These things have been shown to you, and they're happening. Now, let's just say per se that this isn't the mark of the beast, but it surely does fit in the description of the Bible and what the Bible says. Now, it's in there. You should probably want to stray away from anything that is like it or similar to it. It's definitely not a good thing. But you've been shown these things. You can't say that I didn't know. I didn't know. I was never shown. Well, you've always been shown, and you've always had the answers. There's no excuses. if you end up in hell, it is indeed your fault.
Knowing the Bible and knowing God for 2 decades and understanding that most things that God says, it's very obvious. You know that? Because God's not trying to hide it, because when it's the day of judgment and you face God alone, you're not going to be able to wave your finger at God and say, you didn't tell me. How could I possibly know? And God will say, it was staring at you right in the face.
Right in the face. Right in the face. So, if you don't believe what you don't see, and then you see it, then you still don't believe, what type of belief do you have? I'd have to say, you don't have any belief at all.
And why is it so fitting? Because it's good for all the people who said, I don't believe in hell. And God said, you were looking at it every day. Why didn't you believe? See, for those who say, I don't believe what I don't see, God says, I know. So that's why I put it there for you to see every day of your life. And this is one of the ways that God will ensure that nobody will sin again after the millennium. Because we who have believed in God, not because we're good, but because we just believe His goodness, we will always be able to see every single human who refused to believe in Him where they are. They'll be right there in the lake of fire. So it's good for everybody. It's good for the unbelievers who said, I never saw, I don't believe what I see. And God says, yep, that's why I put it there for you to see. And then for all the Christians and believers who say, how do we know that we're not going to sin again? He'll say, just look up. Don't do it. Because that's what happens. You see? So God did it for both sides. Those who say, I won't believe what I don't see, He made the lake of fire. For those who say, God has to see more than I see. You got to show me something that no human can know. He says, yep, that's why I made hell. But here's the problem with men. Men say, even though they see it, I don't believe it. And then others say, well, I don't believe what I don't see. And so the problem is, men are very difficult to please. The problem is not God, because God has answered both sides sufficiently for any reasonable thinking person. God has closed every excuse that you could possibly have for rejecting Him and saying, I don't believe that there's a destiny in a hot place.
He calls it both small and mighty, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell, save he has had or the number of the beast, or the number of his name. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship beast and his image, and receives his mark and his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be torn with fire and brimstone, in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascended forever and ever. And they have no rest, day nor night. who worship as if whosoever receive the mark of his name.
So please, you have all the answers you need. Everyone does. It's just up to you to look and believe. Please, we're running out of time. I love you all. God bless you all. It's time to wake up.